All right, hello friends. Thank you for joining me today. My name's Dan. Hello, David. Old friends greeting before I even start broadcasting. That's pretty impressive. All right, first of all, you're getting a terrible glare in this. That gives you as I look at my monitor, that's way too warm. Hello, Uncle 60. But I have to paint with the light on, so I'm sorry about that. Tell you what, I'll pick you up for just a second and see if I can get you a better view. There you go. That's much more like it. There, you see that? I'm really liking this painting. Anxious to get back to it, and believe it or not, almost a little bit nervous to get back to it because I feel like it's got real potential to be a really good painting. I may, hello Thinker888, good to have you on board. I might, if this painting turns out well, I might save this one for a competition for trying to get in OPA, Oil Painters of America, but that's getting way ahead of myself. Right now the job is just paint well. But I'm very much liking the way it's going. Yes, my heart is still in my throat when I do this stuff right here. It's like, this is crazy, and I keep thinking, well, maybe I've overdone it now. Now I've really overdone it, you know. So I have a number of half-baked thoughts about this, about the painting, and they are all half-baked. I don't usually like broadcasting when I don't know what I'm going to do, but there you go. I don't know what I'm going to do, and I'm broadcasting anyway. I think that rather than normally when I do this, any glaze, I cover the whole canvas, often with just one or two colors. But on this painting, I think I'm going to do a little bit more surgically precise glazes. This doesn't really need anything, except that, of course, I just did oil stick on top of it, so now I have to do something. So I'm going to mix up some very, very faint, yeah, that's too yellow. That was Indian yellow. And now I've put some oxide red on it. Well, I just lost my red line almost completely. But that's all right. That's all right. I liked the value of this. Tell you what, I'm going to leave you guys over here for a while since that lighting worked much better. Hang on. Yeah, that looks good. All right. I'm using for my glaze a combination of mediums. I know you English majors, the word is media, but I think in the art world it's mediums. That's just my opinion. Liquin and Neo McGilp. Uncle 60, can you use pastel sticks instead of the larger, or oil pastel? That is a good question. Please find out. Give it a try. Uncle 60, give it a try and let us know how it goes. I would like to know that myself. Can you use oil pastel? I think not. I've thought about that. I haven't really tried it, but my thinking has been that the oil pastels never dry. So they've got something in them, I would think some kind of waxy substance to keep them essentially from ever drying. Now, the question is, and you raise a very good question, but if you mixed oil pastel, I wonder if you could even Google this, somebody. See if somebody like on Wet Canvas or something like that has addressed this subject. If you mix a drying medium like liquid with an oil pastel, will the oil pastel then dry? Well, that's an interesting question. Because if it did, then why don't we all just do that with our oil pastels, right? I love oil pastels. I mean, you know, for a fun diversion every once in a while. They're great fun. The downside of them is, of course, they have to be framed. They have to be, framed and framed behind glass, because otherwise they're not a permanent medium. They never dry, virtually never dry. Now, I do know, and I've done some oil pastels over here and there over the years, and I do know that some people have at least tried to concoct a spray finish for oil, a combination of things, you know, a secret formula. Anyway, that is a very good question. I wish I knew the answer, because frankly, I think it would be fun to do some oil pastels, you know, wider range of colors and so on and so forth. So, Uncle 60, go find out for us, would you? All right, so I did warm here. I just did ultramarine there. And now I've put, without cleaning my brushes, so I have a dirty stuff, you know, on my brushes. I've just done a dioxazine violet, and I think I want this face of this building right here just to be a little tiny bit darker. Not too dark, just a tiny bit darker. Do I want this building going dark to light? Which right now it's going dark to light. Do I want it going dark to light? I think the way it's going is right. Lighter over here and slightly darker in this corner. Let me give you a general rule of thumb. That's redundant to say general rule of thumb, isn't it? If it's a rule of thumb, it's general. Be that as it may, silence to the inner English major. I've taught on this before. When you're working on a painting, and the drawing is good. So that's an important caveat, important prerequisite. The drawing is good. So you're not worried about drawing mistakes, and that's done. And as far as you can tell, the composition is essentially good, but something about the painting just isn't cooking. And I would say, I think we've all been there. I've certainly been there many times. I have a theory, a half-baked answer, a good guess maybe. When you're in that situation, looking at the painting, composition's okay, drawing's good, but something's it's just not popping and sizzling. It's just kind of flopping there like a dead fish. I guess dead fish don't flop, do they? Half dead fish. Anyway, enough of the picturesque word pictures. Try this out. About 75% of the time when that happens, when you're in those moments, 75, I'm guessing. This is not a highly scientific number, just a wild guess. Hang on just a second. I'm going to raise my painting up a little bit. 75% of the time, when you're in that situation, it is a values problem. Something's wrong with your values. And I'm trying to say it's not composition per se, because I've already said that if your composition, so to speak, is okay. But it's still not, something's not working. 75% of the time, I'm going to say it's a values problem. You with me? And 75% of the times that it's a values problem, like that could mean either not enough lights or not enough darks. 75% of the time, I think it's a not enough darks problem. Now that's a pretty broad generalization, I know. But give it a try. I present that to you for your consideration. I think I can move you guys over here now. Shouldn't be getting too much glare. Let me continue with this thought. 75% of the time, it's a values problem. And 75% of those times, it's inadequate darks. So it's not always, but I'm guessing about 3 out of 4 times, you don't have enough darks on your painting. And I'm basing this opinion not just on my own paintings, my own work, but, you know, frankly, 12 years of attending a monthly painters, at least a monthly painters group. And of course, you know, seeing shows, painting shows, judging shows, and things like that. So, and what I've got one more point to make in this thought. So, something's wrong with the painting, but it's not drawing and it's not composition. 3 out of 4 times, it's a values issue. And 3 out of 4 of those times, it's an inadequate darks. Then, that's where this transparent glaze, and I really groan way too often when I'm witnessing other people struggle with their paintings. For instance, at like our painters group. I'm not in charge. I'm not the boss man. I mean, I'm technically in charge, but I don't talk too much. And I can't say to, frankly, about 80% of the paintings that get put up in front of our group. 80? Yeah? Okay, I'll go back to 75. 75% of the paintings that get put up in front of me at our group, I go, inadequate darks, inadequate darks. And I sound like such a dang broken record that I don't just keep saying it over and over and over and over again. And then the next phrase in my mind, after saying inadequate darks, the next thing is, glaze that puppy. A quick glaze would solve you almost all your problems right now. Just glaze it, just glaze. But again, I don't know if any of them will ever hear. Some of them every once in a while listen to my broadcast. And if you are listening, you're welcome. You're welcome that I don't just keep saying that all the time, and you're welcome. If you're part of our group and you put your paintings up, please understand that most of the time I'm saying, in my mind, silently, in my mind, I'm saying inadequate darks, and glaze that puppy, glaze that sucker, glaze that painting. Anyway, so, and that is, of course, I'm just saying that because you're watching me, so to speak, follow my own advice. So I've just done sort of a dark black down here. And maybe I'm done glazing. No, I'm not. I'm not. But I'm going to put away those dirty brushes. And I'm going to do some permanent rose. Without question, my favorite red to glaze with which to glaze. To satisfy the inner English major. My favorite red with which to glaze. So I don't dangle a preposition with. My wife and I lived in Minnesota for 3 years. Both of our biological children were born in Minnesota, and we had a great time in some ways. But one of the unusual provincialisms of that part of the country is that not only do they dangle the preposition with, they do it like on purpose. If in Minnesota, if you want to say to someone, do you want to come with me? Do you want to go with me? Do you want to go with us? They never say the personal pronoun. Do you want to go with me? They just say, you want to go with? Want to come with? Want to go with? Isn't that funny? Isn't that cute? All right. So, permanent rose. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Transparent red. And it just gives a little kiss of pink. Some of you've heard this. There is no such thing as transparent red. And I know that probably may sound really strange to some of you. If so, I'm glad you're tuned in. I'm glad you're listening. Glad you're watching. Or will watch later. I'll repeat it. Some of you are going, what? What? Okay. It's those of you who are going, what? What? Those are the ones of you that really need to listen. There is no such thing as transparent red. Red per se. Red does not go transparent. When cad red, say, cad red medium, if you add a whole bunch of medium to it, not to confuse those two meanings of the word medium, sorry all you ESL people, English is second language. When you add a whole bunch of medium, say, to cadmium red, the effect is that you get, and then you brush on your canvas, the effect is not, ooh, transparent red. The effect is bubblegum pink. In other words, mentally, it changes color on you. It doesn't feel red. It feels, my best word for it is bubblegum pink. And it's not that's probably my least favorite color in the whole world. That's part of the reason why in the last year or so I've had a special project to make sure I use bubblegum pink, because any respectable artist should not avoid using some color because for some sentimental or subjective is the word I want, subjective reason. All right, so I've just glazed permanent rose. So there you go, permanent rose. I'm going to drop that subject. I could talk a lot more about red not going transparent, but that's good enough. I am going to do an experiment right now. I've been thinking about this for a while. Well, if it doesn't work, I can wipe it off. Okay. David just said something really interesting, and I didn't catch it. It'll come back. It'll come up in a minute on my iPad monitor. All right. Up until now, in my painting journey, I have almost, hello Muskie, yes, I'm back. I've almost exclusively used scumbling when I want to get some part of the painting lighter. Okay, now the rest of that story is scumbling is great for lightening or shifting color on any large area of your painting. Small areas you just do opaque, but if you have a large area, you want to shift scumbling. And if you've watched me do that, then you've heard me say, excuse me, I think I'm going to sneeze. Indeed, I was going to sneeze. That's strange, David. I saw your message, and then it didn't come up on my iPad yet. Maybe, I guess we're just running slow. All right, scumbling to get light. Scumbling is opaque dry paint, dry brush you could call it, applied very thinly. So it's a translucent effect. But I've been scratching my head lately, thinking, well, wait a minute. There is another way that we could make part of our painting lighter besides scumbling. It's probably, I probably am the last one on the planet to learn this, but I've never done it, and it surprises me a little bit. So I'm going to experiment. I'm going to try it, and that is, here, let me point you at my palette for just a minute so you can see what I've been doing here the last couple of minutes. I'm mixing up a wet, so it has lots of medium in it. Again, I'm using a mixture of two mediums here, so that the glazes I'm doing today are not too slow dry. So this is a wet slurry. It's got titanium, Naples yellow, permanent rose, and Indian yellow. Okay, those are the three colors. Don't take notes on that. That is not a formula. You paint with your eyes. You mix colors with your eyes. You don't mix colors with formula. All right, so it's, I'm thinking we ought to be able to get lightness onto our painting with a wet. Let's see if this will work. I'm living dangerously. The worst thing that could happen is I could say, nah, I don't like it, and wipe it off. Of course, I'd be wiping off the glaze that I just put on there a few minutes ago, so it would be, you know, a little bit of a mess to clean up, but it's not looking, well, okay. It's not looking exactly like I was hoping for. So the difference between what I'm doing now and my normal dry brush scratching is my brushes are very wet. Sort of like, okay, if I could compare it to a watercolor technique, it's sort of as if I would mix, I never do this in watercolor, I don't think, but you mix a little bit of white with your color to make it. So it's like a wet scumbling instead of a dry scumbling. Does that make sense? And I'm not completely crazy about that color, so I'm going to add some yellow and red, permanent rose and Indian yellow to that mixture. So the difference between this and scumbling is this is very wet, and that makes me think, this is an experiment, I've never done this before, this makes me think that I wouldn't need to come back as I do with scumbling. Scumbling leaves an unattractive texture on your painting, so it's not a good final layer. You can let little bits of scumbling show through, of course, but you don't want whole large passages of your painting to be that scumbling texture. So I'm thinking, so I've just lightened this area, right, with soupy. What's another word besides soupy? Slurry. A slurry of opaque, but it's so transparent, a lot of medium, so it's translucent. Translucent is the word. Well, I'm going to continue. I talked the other day a little bit about my discovering something about myself, discovering that there's a name for people like me. No, not that one. There's a name for people. Yeah, David's still talking about the reflections of those tail lights on that roof. I will work on that a little bit. I'm not sure I'm going to do exactly what you said, David, but I am going to work. I'm going to do a reflection of the sky on those cars. All right, but let's. By the way, I'm thinking here without telling you. I'm thinking that here in a few minutes, I'm likely to either pick up some dry brushes or a rag, and I might lift out some of this stuff that I'm doing. I'm standing back, squinting at my painting a little bit. Let me back up to big picture mindset. I like the painting quite a bit, and the focal point, the steeple up here, is quite obvious. And you're getting bad glare there, sorry. But it was just everything was up there, and there was virtually nothing down here. So the main thing, and okay, the problem in a painting is usually values. In this case, rare. I need more light down here. So that's what I'm doing right now is just adding more, evening glow, evening and traffic glow. Down here, and I've succeeded in that. I'm standing. No, okay, let me continue. Don't stop me. It's going okay. I've just added some, I don't know, some kind of purple. I have some paints on my palette at the moment that I don't even know what they are. You're saying, how can you have paint on your palette you don't even know what it is? Well, I'll tell you. There's a real answer to that question. It is because last weekend, some of you can go back and look. I painted one of my annual big festival outings. I painted it at the Whirligig Festival with my big equipment. Okay, and in my big equipment, I have oil paints, dedicated to that equipment. I have several different easels in my life. I generally try to keep every easel that I have is fully stocked with its own complement of paint. So I don't have to, drag paint out of one kit, so to speak, into another. Does that make sense? So anyway, in my big rig, and you can go back if you want to see what if you're not familiar with what I mean by that. In my big rig, I have these paints, and a bunch of them actually were given to me free, and a bunch of them are student grade stuff. That's part of why they were given to me free. But I'm not above experimenting with student grade paints, which would drive a lot of art snobs absolutely up a wall. Well, have a nice trip up the wall. Fun things can be discovered to those who are adventuresome. Anyway, so that's why, and then after I got back from the weekend, I transferred all my paints that weren't dry on my palette from the weekend. I transferred them to this palette. So that's why I have some, I don't even know, I'll show you what I'm talking about here since I've talked about it so much. This is one very crowded palette. So I don't know what this is, or this, or this. And that looks like a sap green, but I'm not sure. I don't know what those two are. Those are all leftovers from last weekend. Does that make sense? Not that you cared or that it matters. I just explaining how can I be using colors if I don't know what they are? Now you know the answer. At the moment, I will tell you, I'm not done, but I'm enjoying. I've got just this messy, sloppy, glurpy, slobbery. There's a good word. There's a good word. I've got this slobbery. Too much information, right? Ew, that doesn't make me feel good. I can hear some of you saying this. Goopy. There we go. There's a word I'm looking for. Goopy kind of a plum, brownish, yellow purple down here and here. Oh, I'm standing back with my, literally standing back with my chin, with my hand on my chin, looking and thinking. Let me do that again. Hey, Tolly. Tolly just joined me. Tolly's 5. Aren't you?
Yeah. Look at your van.
Yeah, you can see my van down there, can't you?
And look at the trailer.
Yep. We got new windows at our house a couple weeks ago. New
windows.
fancy new windows all around the whole house.
Even this one right there.
And they're nice and clear. And,
nice.
And you can open them really easily.
And they have a screen.
And they have a screen, that's right. All kinds of things that we had gotten used to doing without. Yeah, I think I'm going in a good direction at the moment. I still think I'm going to pick up a rag and do some lifting out with a rag.
Wow.
But before
That's
that,
pretty.
Is that pretty?
Yeah, it's pretty.
Good, thanks. This will be interesting if this ends up being a permanent part, a new part of my toolbox, a new tool in my toolbox.
It's pretty.
Thank you.
Wait, what is that tall building?
Yeah, that's a church in Charleston, South Carolina. Do you remember
Like the giant
2 weekends ago, do you remember Nana and I, we went and visited Uncle Jeff and Aunt Donna? Do you remember? You guys stayed here and we went without you? Okay, I'm going to put these brushes down. I'm going to keep them.
Ooh.
Well, this was in their town.
Wow.
Yeah, do you like it?
Yeah, I like it.
I've tried
Jealous,
larger, one fan, one just large dry.
Have a wet house. They have a wet
Now, what I'm doing now, that could be considered scumbling, okay? It's a dry brush.
Because
Yeah?
the common jealous and she and we have
Okay, don't bump this.
a wet house.
A wet house, they do because it's raining outside today,
Yeah.
isn't it? Okay, I'm continue to look, stroke my chin, and think about what next. Wow, you're catching me, gang. You're catching me right in the middle, in the throes of discovery. You know what? My monitor here has died. Let's see if I can fix that. Okay, you be kind of quiet, okay, Tolly girl, because I'm broadcasting, okay? I'm glad you're happy. Forgive me for just a minute. Let's see if I can get my my monitor working again. There we go. Okay, sorry. There we go. I missed several of you. Okay, C's 3, bless you, thank you, bless you too, I appreciate that. The two tails on light, just checking out a good thing, look in the mirror. Yep. Hello, Jane, thank you. Yes, I missed you too, that's right. Musky, brownish, yellow, purple. Exactly, my favorite color. Sorry, David, I'm reading most of your comments, but not Yes, this is not finished. I think that's the green you're talking about. Yeah, that needs to be defined just a little bit, if that's the green you're talking about. If it's not, then I disagree with you. This green is working fine, as is that, as is this. But no, that's a mess. That's just because I haven't defined that a little bit. Emphasis on the word a little bit, of course. So my default mistake, the most common mistake for me to make, I'm not the only one, but I will, at least I'll own up to it. Most common mistake for me to make is too many hard edges in a painting. Not a good balance between messy and neat, you could say. I'm like most of you, or most of you are like me. What I'm describing here is sort of a subset of the overall theme of I paint well, I would like to be a little looser. All right? So at the moment, I'm liking what I have just done. Because it sure is nice and messy. Lots of glow. The most important aspect of any painting, of course, is play of light. Right? That's one of my mantras. I say it so often. You could say Dan Nelson. Oh yeah, he's that transparent. Oh yeah, he's that play of light guy. That was guilty as charged. I will accept that summarization. One of many that would fit. And funny little reality about us painters, all of us generally. We are all more willing or happier for the other fella, male and female fellas, we're all happier for the other guy to be looser than we're willing to be ourselves. I've seen this month by month by month for years now, and I'm in my painters group. By the way, our painters group is happening tonight, so I'm excited about that. It's always a highlight of my month. And I plan to take this painting to show my friends there and get their input. I especially like taking a painting. Oops, hang on, I've gone off camera there. I especially like taking a painting that is not finished. By the way, so I'm still doing this experiment, which is lightening a painting with wet stuff. By wet, I mean lots of medium. And if you're a newcomer to my channel, let me repeat some real common principles. If you're an early journey painter, that is, you're still a beginner, intermediate, student, and so forth, wannabe, whatever you want to call yourself. But I like the term early journey. It's very possible that you don't understand the proper use of mediums. Again, English major, shut up. In art, I think it's called mediums, right? And in this case, I'm talking like I'm using two at the moment, mixed together. Neo McGilp, the strangest named medium in all of art, and liquid. Most artists in my generation, whether they're good, bad, or indifferent, think their default setting is that mediums like this, a medium is something that you add a bit, tiny bits of medium to your paint, and that's certainly okay. I mean, there's a lot of painters that are really good who paint straight out of the tube. I was unable to get a hold of Kevin McPherson and bent his twig before he got rich and famous. As I've said many times before, who do I think I am? How can I have the chutzpah to pride, arrogance, to give counsel to somebody, to artists who are so much better than I am? You have the right to ask that. Well, I have the right to answer it. The answer is I'm not pitting my own skill against, say, well, I used Kevin McPherson example because I think he paints more or less dry, thick paint straight out of the tube, as do many other fantastic artists, okay? But in doing so, those people, are indeed painting like children of the 20th century. They are 20th century painters, okay? They're not universal eternal painters. That is to say, they're painting in a manner, those who paint opaque, out of the tube paints. That is not the way most painting has been done over the centuries, okay? All the great Renaissance painters, essentially all the great Renaissance painters painted layers of transparent. Got it? So I am like them more than like the contemporary guys. Now, there's a reason I was getting to that, and what was it? It was more that I was going to make a point. It'll come back to me here in a minute. Oh yeah, okay. So you early journey painters, and unless your twig has been bent by somebody like me or like one of the Renaissance painters, you probably have learned that a medium is something you add a little bit of to your paint. And I would say, oh, no. It's the other way around. Like what's on my brushes right now is a tiny bit of paint and large amounts of medium. Okay, so it's very, very goopy. What's on my brushes is very wet and drippy. If I flicked my brush like this, boom, very hard, paint would come flying off it. It's that wet, okay? So just, I'd like to get, especially you beginners, or you early journey people, understand. The analogy I usually use, I think it expresses it the best, is compare it to a stew. Most of you think that the paint is your meat and potatoes, and a medium is your spices, your salt and your pepper and your spices, when in fact it's the very opposite of that. The medium is the meat and potatoes, and the color, the little tiny bits of paint that you add to your brush is the spice, okay? So it's the other way around. And I would like to catch you early journey people before you get locked in. And of course, all this goes back to why do I care, and so on and so forth. Because I'm happy to report that one of the grand lessons of the 20th century was, quote unquote, the canvas is flat. And indeed, another way to say that, one of the grand lessons of the 20th century was that painters are not photographers. But I'm glad to report, hear ye, all you art professors, we have learned the lesson. At least most of us have. Most of us true painters have learned that we are not cameras, that we're not in the business of reproducing a photographic image. We are in fact producing, not reproducing. Anyway, so the tool, one of the main tools in our toolbox is the magic of transparency. So we can go back to 16th, 17th, 18th century excellent painting. Again, with not forgetting or abandoning the great lessons, hard lessons we learned in the 20th century, not at all. But we can, in fact, go back to the beauty of transparency and translucence. And transparency and translucence beat opacity all to heck, or any other minced oath you want to throw in there. That's a good old-fashioned word, isn't it? Some of you guys never even heard the term minced oath. Google it. The word heck is a good example of a minced oath. In my house growing up, we would get in trouble for uttering a minced oath. It was improper. And I'm not complaining about my upbringing at all, believe me. I'm glad, I'm very thankful for my heritage. I'm also thankful that I've grown beyond it, but very thankful for what my parents gave me in nearly every arena. All right, so I'm still painting lots of wet. This is what I'm doing today is still an experiment. I'm doing a little bit of harder bits, as you can see, harder bits of light, especially, whoa. One mark just got away from me there, way too bright. But all right, I think that's all right. I think this all comes off as loose. Again, my default mistake is to go too much to hard edges. There's some, my mind, evidently, my brain really gets a kick out of sort of stained glass window feeling of colors. Even, what's his name? The Russian Jewish guy, Mark, 20th century famous modern painter. Sort of hard, I'm sorry, it'll come back to me in a minute. Sort of hard edges, sort of outliney. I mentioned him, Marc Chagall, because of the similarity between his work and stained glass window effect. In fact, he designed a number of stained glass windows. Marc Chagall. Anyway, my brain kind of likes that kind of stuff, but in spite of that, in spite of the fact that my brain likes it, I've discovered that it's not, whoops. I feel like I've just made a slight perspective error here. Let's see if I can fix it. Some scratching. Yes, you guys are my online painters group, no doubt about that. Uncle says, I glazed over unknown wet titanium white. Oh yeah, exactly. Not. Did you caught your mistake, then you had to fix it, right? Okay, bear with me a minute. Okay, we go back down a little bit. Down here. See how, oh my goodness, see, I'm just almost literally fighting with myself. Because my natural tendency And on one hand, you could say, well, you should just do what comes natural. Well, no, I don't think so. In life, many times, you better not do what comes natural. It's civilization is predicated upon the notion that we don't all go around doing what comes natural. Newsflash to some of you. Those people who do run around in life doing what comes natural, we typically call them inmates. They are incarcerated for one reason or another, or a dozen. Well, I was just doing what came natural. Yeah, look, yeah, that worked for you, didn't it? Anyway, so no, I'm not sure that as an artist we should always do what comes natural. There's a right way to take that and a wrong way. So for me, coming in here and doing a whole bunch of stairs and railings and so on. Now the irony is I am doing stairs and railings, but again, so I'm right there with most of the, honestly, almost all the artists you and I know struggle with this very thing of, I wish I was looser. That should be a song. Somebody should make up a song. Oh, I wish I was looser. Most of my students, when I teach live, just for some reason, I'm not sure what the reason is. Most of my students are women. Like 1 out of 8 or so is a man. Not online. It's funny. Online, it's almost the opposite of that, and that's really odd. But anyway, so often I'll say, at the end of this class, what I want is a room full of loose women. Yuck, yuck, yuck. Yuck, yuck, yuck. I will still come down and do a little bit of pops of blue reflection, a little bit on these dogs. On these dogs, listen to me. These are cars, on these cars. But before I go any further, let's put all these brushes down. And let's pick up a rag. It must be cold where you are today, David. We are supposed to get temperatures in the 20s by this evening. That's pretty cold for down here in November. All right, so I have rags. Any marks that I'm not in love with, and this is a good example. Okay, marks that I'm not in love with does not equate to marks that are not realistic. That's a very, very different description. So I'm not, now that right there, that was a little touch of realism. But marks that aren't pleasant, aren't interesting, that didn't come, so to speak, flying off my brush in a particularly attractive manner. That's what I want to touch. And again, not to be confused with realism. So I'm not just removing marks. Okay, boy, I'm debating how light can I go in here. See, does it make sense? No, I think I'm going to actually rub off some of this, go back to a little bit darker in here. So most of what I'm wiping off now is this, most of what I'm wiping off now is this slurry, this goopy, wet stuff. I really like what happened right here. With those abstract marks, the reflection on the inside of the wheel there. I wonder what hi Barbara, good to have you with us. I wonder what my 87-year-old rants will sound like too. I ended up doing a whole bunch of stuff up there, as you saw, and part of which was defining this palm tree. I'll probably do a little bit of a few green marks up there to make it look like a tree. But that already reads better, David. That's, I think, part of what you were referring to earlier. It was confusing, but now it looks a little more. And I think when I come back with just a little tiny bit of pale green, I think it'll be all right. All right, I'm tired of whatever I'm doing, whatever I've been doing for the last 20 minutes. I'm tired of it. So that's one good way. There's two things to do. One is to walk out of the room, go downstairs, get another cup of coffee, or go to the bathroom, or get some popcorn, or eat a little square of dark chocolate. You know, all those things you can do, which are not terribly productive. Or you can, so to speak, keep your nose to the grindstone. But when you're tired of something, that's often a good alert. Say, okay, whoa, 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 do something else. So that's what I'm doing here. So let's find something else to do. By the way, I do use my fingers in my painting occasionally. And I say this all the time for you newcomers. That's partly because there are no cads or cobalts, no cadmiums and no cobalts in my paint, and I don't think there are any toxic colors. All right, man, I've covered up my whole palette almost. I'll keep going. I want to mix up a dark color now. That color. It's too blue for up there. Should have been browner. But I've got this blue stuff. Let's find a place where my painting needs it. I'm reminded here at this moment when I'm painting in this manner of my new resolution to, by the way, I printed off a photograph of the scene just a little while ago, printed off this morning. So I'm looking at that in particular with reference to that car. My resolution to never again use the term loose painting, because I believe it is counterproductive. When most early journey painters hear the term, which they do all the time, for me is included until just a couple of months ago, when they hear the term paint loose, no, we want loose painting is good, loose painting, we want to paint loosely. I am convinced that the early journey painter translates that into render or draw messy, or draw and here's the real key issue, in an inaccurate manner. Let your drawing be inaccurate. Now somehow Van Gogh managed to pull that off. But if you think you're Van Gogh, I hope you are, but you're probably not. So until you learn how to paint, you have to work your way to Van Gogh. So again, I'm trying, the reason it comes to mind is I'm really working here to render these cars accurately. But render them accurately with energetic strokes. So loose is not proper, because loose, again, connotes or conveys the notion of sloppy, inaccurate drawing. And I've been on a intentional quest for, I don't remember the first time I probably said this to myself out loud, but it was probably 8 years ago at least, that I said of my own paintings, I want my paintings to be more accurate and messier. So that was the term of choice, and I still like it. I still like that term. I want my paintings to be more accurate. When I looked around at the art that I admired most, the drawings were very good. What a difference from so much of what passes for impressionistic painting, which is what most people do, and myself included. But much of what passes for impressionistic painting, what that really means is lousy drawing. Now, Jane, I don't know if you're still with us, I believe it was you, asked, yeah, it was, a question several weeks ago now. I've said many times that the ideal art journey, I believe, is we spend the first half of our journey learning how to paint stuff that looks like stuff, and the second half of our journey learning how to paint stuff that looks like paint. And Jane, I can't remember the exact language of your question, that it seemed to insinuate like, oh man, but I feel like it's too late for me. What can I do? I have some good news in that regard, Jane. I'm actually, this weekend, by the way, is Art of the Carolinas. If any of you are coming, give me a yell. Let me know. Let's get together for coffee or something. I am teaching, one of the classes I'm teaching, and I certainly hope to record it and then broadcast it. One of the classes I'm teaching is called Abstracting Your Way to Good Realistic Painting. So it actually addresses that very issue, Jane, of, so if you're not a great drawer and you feel like you've missed, I'm not saying you, Jane, but if one feels like one has missed that, what I describe as the first half of the art journey, learning how to draw well, is there hope for you, so to speak? And I absolutely believe there is, and that'll be the subject of my class this coming weekend. You can learn how to paint well before you are able to draw well. Now, I still advocate on the side, so to speak, like with sketching, with the activity of sketching, learn how to draw well. But you can produce good paintings if you understand these certain guidelines and principles. And those are the principles I'm going to teach. And for those of you who follow me on a regular basis, none of the principles will surprise you. You'll go, oh yeah, he says that a lot. Oh yeah, he says that a lot. Oh yeah, he says that a lot. But the basic thesis is you can paint well, even if you can't draw well. I still recommend getting better at drawing. But even if you never do, can you do good paintings? The answer is yes. You can do good impressionistic paintings, but there's things that you have to do. One of which is avoid the muddy middle. If you're going to draw something poorly, quote unquote, make it poor enough that everybody knows you did it on purpose. Don't make it close. I don't think I call it the muddy middle on my outline, but maybe you get the idea there. So yes, indeed, one of the tricks is make your accidents look intentional, so that people don't wonder if you meant to do this or that. But anyway, there'll be a lot of other things that I'll teach in that class as well. And as I said, even if you can't attend, well, you can't attend because that class is sold out. But I certainly intend to broadcast that class sometime in the future. And again, it's called, I forget, let me see, right behind me here on the computer. Let me look at it really quick. Yeah, abstracting your way to realism, something like that. don't know if you, I haven't talked about what I'm doing. I've got a, again, still painting wet, very wet. I don't mean like wet paint, I mean like goopy paint, slobbery, to use an unpleasant word picture. I'm still painting with slobbery wet paint, but doing some dark stuff on top of the light stuff that I just did a minute ago. So that, okay, let me just, here's test quiz time, okay? So right now I'm doing dark, transparent by the way, of course, dark transparent on top of the light stuff. What does that tell you? That I'm an idiot. No. That tells you that I'm going to come, that means I'm not done. Like wherever I'm putting this dark stuff, which has been mostly down here, that part of the painting is not done, right? You always, whenever you put down dark paint, that's just your wind up. That means you're going to come back in a few minutes, however many minutes, you're going to come back and do light stuff again, and that indeed is the case. And the light that I'm going to do in a minute will be opaque. I'm working on this. I really like this woman here. I hope I don't mess her up. I teach classes often on abstracting figures into your scenic paintings. I'm not talking about how to do figurative painting. That's a different, I like teaching that too, but that's a different subject entirely. This is for those of us who are landscape painters. And it's exactly the same theme I've been talking about in the last several minutes. Accurate rendering with energetic strokes. Accurate is I want it to look, but the energetic strokes, I want it to look like I accidentally, in this case, like nailed this woman's anatomy. Does that make sense? That sounded a little risque, didn't it? Forgive me. I shouldn't have said that, because it didn't sound risque till I said that. No, it's too late. Anyways, I want it to look like I accidentally did an accurate rendering of this woman. And if I may go so far as to say, not only do I want it to look like I accidentally achieved a believable anatomy, I want it to look like, at the same time, as if I accidentally, quote unquote, accidentally rendered an attractive female figure. And again, we're talking here mannequin-like, idealized figure, not because I'm making any kind of statement about hot babes. You understand? Quite the contrary. It's when you paint realistic figures that you're making, that you'll be misconstrued as making statements about something about your people. Okay? Whereas if you just try to make them accidentally not only believable and accurate, but attractive, that the figure, the woman in this case, is easily ignored. It's like your eye goes, oh yeah, good, nice woman, you know, handsome man. But both sexes, by the way, both of us focus on the woman when it comes to looking. Isn't that funny? Men, we look at the woman. Women, you look at the woman. The man is just a prop. That's it. I'm not going to go any further into that. I could get historical, philosophical, theological, and sociological on that subject. I won't, but I could. But it is true. We all look at the woman because, according to the old mythology, the woman was created and brought to the man. That means she was presented. Therefore, the female is a presentation piece. That's part of the part of the truth or reality that's being reflected in that ancient mythology. There's gold in the Mnar Hills. There's gold in those stories, especially if you don't get all hung up on how literal they are. And that's as far down that theological rabbit trail as I'm going to go. Oh, I could go a whole lot further, believe me. Trigger warning. Don't let me trigger you. That's not the point, not my objective. But I do believe it. That is to say that the female in the human species, the female is the show-off. In a sense, we all know that. We all see it constantly. So it is different. This painting would be different if I had two men walking down the sidewalk. It would be a different painting. Neither good nor bad, but it would be different. The fact that I have a male and a female, and the fact that the female is slightly shorter than the male, again, makes this eminently ignorable. That is, you don't look and say, I wonder what he means by that. Not at all. You just glance, go, oh yeah, man, woman, boom, and you move on to other things, which is what I want. Does that make sense? All right. Keep saying I could go on, but I won't, and then I keep going on, don't I? All right. Let's do, so I did some dark stuff. Now, Yahoo, finally, some light stuff. Some white and what kind of yellow is that called? Naples yellow. All of a sudden my head drew a blank. It said, Napa yellow? No, that's not right. Usually my mind is really good with words, but I've discovered when I'm painting, my vocabulary goes flying out the window. All right, so, nope, I'm going to darken that a little bit. So I'm going to do some glow, classic glow. So now it's a little bit more orange. It's appropriate. Here's a fun little, I don't know, whatever it is. Fun. So get ready. Oh boy, Uncle Dan says it's going to be fun. Comments have been made, comparisons have been made over the years, over the months, years and months, for my finished cityscapes. Comparisons have been drawn when looking at my paintings to one Thomas Kincaid. By the way, if you've been with me for long, you know that I sort of love, this was a lot more fun when he was still alive, believe me. The poor dear man did not end well. But anyway, I love saying good things about Thomas Kincaid in a room full of artists. It's just my little perverse sense of humor. Because I love seeing them go off. I love seeing artists go off when you say something good about Thomas Kincaid. And yes, be warned, if you're ever in a circle of artists with me and I, because you'll be in on the joke then, you can laugh with me. Oh my goodness. Okay, and I've had lots of students, say bad things about Thomas Kincaid. And one of my answers, not the only one, but one of my answers is you may criticize him when you are better than him. And so far, I've never ever had one student who's a better painter. Not even close to close. All right, so But anyway, back to comparisons being drawn. Okay, it doesn't bother me because it shows me what people are seeing and what they're missing too. Is there a correlation? Is there a fair comparison? Well, usually my joke is along these lines is, yeah, my name and Thomas Kincaid's appear often in the same sentence. Well, he sure ain't no Thomas Kincaid, but that joke doesn't work here because it's literally true, because it's not true. What people are seeing is my play of light, my over-the-top, check, guilty, my over-the-top light effects. And so I absolutely do. I share that. Do I have that in common with Thomas Kincaid? Absolutely. Are you kidding? He didn't have a corner on it. He didn't have it wasn't patented. He just knew how to paint light. He did indeed. And so do I. And but really the comparison pretty much stops there. And again, I say this with respect. It was more fun to talk about him when he was still alive. But Thomas Kincaid painted pretty pictures. The primary appeal, even though he had skills to go way beyond it. And who are you or I to judge? Maybe that's why he was put on the planet. His appeal was he painted paintings that appealed because of their subject matter. One way to put it, okay? As opposed to paintings that appealed primarily because of the paint. That's the difference between first half of Art Journey and second half. In a way, you could say Thomas Kincaid never got out of the first half, even though he had the skills to. By the way, I didn't mean to go on this long tirade about Thomas Kincaid, but I'll finish it anyway. Years and years and years ago, when we had one of his signature galleries in one of our local malls, of course I went in. Of course I looked at it. And of course, in many respects, I enjoyed it. See, that would trigger all my art friends too. What? You're supposed to hate it. You're supposed to hate it. Like me. But he had, in this gallery, there was one original of his. It was just a little 8 by 10, 10 by 12, something like that. Plein air painting that he did in the Rocky Mountains. And dang, it was a good plein air painting. Oh my goodness. Yeah. Almost made me sad. I mean, oh my goodness. He should have been, in Oil Painters of America. Maybe he was, I don't know. But you know what I mean? He was a good painter. It's just, he chose to do what he chose to do. And again, who are you and I to judge? Most of us hate him, quote unquote, because he made $1 gazillion, and I haven't yet. I just want to add the yet. There's hope for me still. But yeah, so I do not rebuff the comparison when somebody looks at something like this down here and says, oh, like Thomas Kincaid. Hey, I kind of roll my eyes a little bit. It shows me, because no, it is not. The light effects are, nothing else is. Right? I hope, now, obviously, I want my paintings to be attractive because of their subject matter. Secondarily, there's the important qualification. But primarily, of course, as you know, I want my paintings to be beautiful because of the paint, because of the line, value, texture, color, composition, and so on. In other words, all of the elemental principles of design. That's what's mostly at work. The subject matter, which I do want to be beautiful, old steeple. Sorry, hang on. Whoa, you just hit the fan. Literally, sorry, hang on. Earthquake, all right, right, beautiful church steeple, right? So So of course, I'm working on both sides. I want my paintings to appeal to people that are not highly visually sophisticated, if I can use that terminology. And they will look at my painting and say, oh, look at that church steeple. Look at that street. Look at that, blah, 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 right? And that's okay, that's okay. You've got to, in a sense, reach down and pick up people who aren't at your level as an artist. That's one of the hardest lessons as an artist to learn, is that we're not all artists, and many, many people in our world do not see what we see. Oh boy. All right, I don't want to chase that down any further. Anyway. I feel like I should do a little, I have these little descriptions. I think I should do a little Jeremy Sams. Jeremy, I don't know if you're ever going to watch any of my videos. I hope you would. That would be fun. If you ever do, please say hi. Jeremy is a very nice young man. Beat me fair and square the last couple times we met in any competition. So, of course, I hate him. I'm being facetious, mostly. And he paints beautiful, beautiful pictures. Now, between you and me, don't tell him I said this, but yeah, and I think he knows it to some degree, and he's still young. He's maybe almost 40, I would think, or maybe young 40s. He's in the first half of art journey. His paintings are almost entirely, go ahead and Google him, Jeremy Sams, spelled just like it sounds. And nicest guy in the world. I wish him all the best. But early journey painter, no, that's not right. I mean first half of art journey painter, because he, the appeal of his paintings are primarily based on the prettiness of the picture rendered, not so much on the handling of the paint. All right, but what I'm getting to, or was getting to before I so rudely interrupted myself, is that he's mastered this trick of refracted light coming around a dark object. Typically sunlight behind a tree, and the tree trunk turns red. Are you familiar with that? All right, I gotta catch up. Go back. Barbara, do I worry about the toxicity of my medium? Yes, I do. So do I worry about touching it? Not so much. And I do. In my travel kit, I'm now carrying, wet wipes of some kind. And when I'm painting at home, I'll go wash my hands in a minute. I worry more about the fumes, and I think I've talked about it. I've got a window to my right that's open a little bit. It's a windy day, so air's coming in. I've got a fan, and anyway, it's not ideal, but I feel like it's reasonably safe. I do concern about that. Jane responding to my, that was you, yes. You're 65 and you're first, so you were the same age, Jane. My joke is I don't look a day over 64. Amazingly well preserved I am. And Jane says, by the way, I took time off paints to focus on drawing. Good for you. And that taught me that my major early journey issue is not being able to see value well enough. Good lesson. You know what? I'm discovering the same thing at my stage of the journey. When I look at the portraits, painted or drawn or otherwise, that drop my jaw, it's like, dang, I need to pay more attention to values. So good job, Jane. I'm right there with you. Yes, Jane, you're correct. Most, I'm not talking about your paintings, but yeah, that's typical. Most of your paintings are too similar. That's exactly right. That's exactly correct. That is Ubiquitous. You speak for most of us. Yep. Good job. You're on a good journey. David says, you see now why it takes time to make a masterpiece. You finally made it here. Yeah. Thank you, David. My foot can't go that deep. Oh, my goodness. Ranting away about Thomas Kincaid. Oh, thanks, David. All right, so I was talking about so I've just done some. I did light, goopy stuff, then dark details, and then finished with some lighter, more opaque highlights. And I think I can do just a little more of that. Okay, now that I've done that, I'm seeing that this sky up here can go lighter, should go slightly lighter. So I'm going to try a little bit of this, what I call Jeremy Man. He's not the only one who does it, of course, but he's the one person in my life that is I associate most with this refraction of light. The light actually literally does bend around, not blend. The light does literally bend around. A bright light does bend around dark objects, so that the effect, when it gets to us finally, is we're seeing usually a red end of the spectrum. And obviously, I don't have quite the knack that Jeremy has. I need to go back and study his stuff a little bit more. I forgot to do more light in this. I don't think I want this. So far, I've been playing it kind of conservative with this light right here. I don't think I want it like I would do sometimes to make it a big. We'll see. I'm anxious to see what my Painters Forum friends say about the whole painting tonight, but that might be one thing I ask them about. I'm trying to resist. And in real life, these lamps are more of a decoration than a light. They're not extremely bright. I don't know if that's what it's influencing me or not. There's some debate, I think, among artists as to whether we should ever use any pure titanium white. I think probably the conventional wisdom is no. But I'm not sure about that. I just put a tiny speck of pure titanium white, and it might have been a mistake. I'll be the second to admit. A famous quote from my dad. Be the second to admit that I made a mistake. My dad was a very funny fellow. The older he got, the funnier he got. Literally. heritage. I think I'm going to add some more light to the sky down here, I think. I think one of the lessons I've learned in the last couple of years when we're talking about brush strokes, interesting marks, and energetic brush strokes, is that you don't have to settle for whatever your brush puts onto the canvas. You can do what I'm doing right now. You can come back and mess it up. You can do all kinds of things to it. And of course, that's one thing you really can't do with acrylics, and why I don't finish my paintings with acrylics. I know there's a retarder. Yeah, it's not the same. It's not the same. Oh, that's a funny thing about Jeremy Mann too. He paints in acrylics. He makes his acrylics look like oil paintings, which is not their natural disposition. All of a sudden, I think, wait a minute, this is the right color. Come up here and do some abstract-ish clouds. Dry brushes, clean brushes, which means what I'm doing now is clearly scumbling, which means that I probably need to come back and do some real painting, which I'm doing right now. Real paint, so to speak. I'm sorry, real painting as opposed to scumbling. I use the term real painting. I debated switching over and calling it true painting. I use that when I'm just contrasting true painting to photorealistic painting. But when I'm contrasting it to scumbling, real painting as opposed to scumbling. Real painting in that case means you leave marks on the canvas that can clearly be identified as brush strokes. That is to say, the viewer can tell that the artist had a brush in his or her hand of this or that particular size, more or less. You can tell how big the brush was. You can tell more or less how much paint was on the brush, more or less how hard the artist pushed on the canvas, and so forth. That's real painting as opposed to scumbling. You cannot tell those things. Scumbling is scratchy, rubby, right? So that any demarcation of brushstrokes is obliterated. And again, the human eye likes to see real painting. It ain't so crazy about scumbling. All right, now I'm looking again. Sheesh, I wonder how many more times I'm going to paint this part of the painting. And my broadcast is getting just a little too beyond long. So I'm just going to go for a few more minutes and then, forgive me, I'm going to paint without you. Can you believe that? All the nerve. David asks a good question about a ray of sunlight hitting the road. Let me read it again more carefully. I think I know what you mean. What would happen if you had at the bottom right on the road a line of sunlight, like if it's coming behind you? Not a bad idea. Let me think about that. Yeah, Barbara, Jeremy's work's pretty. David says a pink glaze in the upper left sky will create a purplish make you. That's a thought too. David, knock it off with the good thoughts, would you? Do I want more energy up there? Could I stand? You guys can't even see it. Could I stand to have more energy up there? Let me move you again so you're not getting quite so much glare. It's possible. Just a little. There's already a faint hint of lavender purple up there, so it would not be crazy. But the first thing David asked, would a ray of light coming in, like up the street from, a break in the buildings behind me? And the question is, and I know David knows this, the question is, the word I like to use is energy. Do I want, would an energy in this part of the painting be a good, how much energy, of course, is the question for every square inch of the painting. A balance of energies would be a good way to describe the whole painting project, is a balance of energies. I will think about that. I will just continue to think about that. As you all know, everything you do, every stroke you make influences every other stroke in the painting. Let me repeat. So I just discovered that because all this is lighter now, I could come back and do more light behind the heads of these people, and it would, I think, look good. I think it'll look good, right? Again, that's a description of the painting process. Why did you do that? Well, I thought it was going to look good. And sometimes you end up right, and sometimes you end up wrong. Just another comment about the overall painting philosophy process. If all of your time that you spend on a painting is going, I'm going to say this direction, is going toward realism and detail and accuracy and tightness and realism, then time is your enemy in painting, because the longer you spend, the further you go down that road. Okay? So the antidote to that is to make sure that a great deal of the time that you spend on your painting, in fact, does not go that way, but goes this way. And in fact, for the last however long I've been broadcasting, for the last hour, that's a pretty good description of what I've actually been doing. I've done a lot of painting in the last hour, but much of it has not been in a realistic direction. Much of it has been messy and will continue to be so. So, David's question about light coming, it's possible, even faint. But before I do that, I'm going to do some sky color. There's already just a hint of blue on these cards. You guys could probably hardly see it. But I've got quite a blue sky way up there. And by the way, yes, this is an exaggerated sky prism. To go from that blue to this yellow is exaggerated. I've compressed the prism of the sky. That is why does a sunset go from blue to green to yellow to orange to red to purple, so to speak, is because of the sky creates a prism. As the sun gets too close to the horizon, we get a different part of the prism. And I've exaggerated, and I do that in many, many, many of my paintings. I'm aware of it, and I believe in it, so to speak. I think it's most of the time it's a good idea, even though it's not realistic. If the sky could be this blue up here, it really, and you're not seeing an accurate color there, by the way. I don't know if I can, you can see, yeah, that, there you go. That's a more realistic color up there. Anyways, if it's that blue up here, should it really be this dusky? And the answer is no. But most eyes, most minds buy it. It's like, yeah, okay, I get it. So it's exaggerated, right? Like much of what we do as artists is realism exaggerated. Let me rattle off some of the things I need to do, and I'm going to do them without your company. This sign, I'm going to keep the values very much the way it is, very subtle, dull, but I want the letters to be barely legible. There's some architecture down here. This is a window, and right now it's just a big black blob that needs to be lightened because it's getting too much energy. So I'll make it look a little more like a window, but a messy window. And then blue on the cars. Tiny bit of highlight on the woman's red dress. And I'm thinking about changing. They almost look like they're walking arm in arm. That was not the original intent. The original intent was she has a shoulder strap and a bag here. But if I bring his sleeve down here and make this her hand, I don't know. And that's just that's a psychological thing. Would it? I was thinking he's got a briefcase, so I was thinking business people, because that's what's actually on the street, bankers and lawyers on this street. That doesn't matter to those of you who are not familiar with Charleston. You know, but she's got her arm in his arm, handed through his arm. Makes them a little bit more romantic, a little bit more couplish, of course, considerably more couplish. And I'm thinking that's probably a good idea. We'll find out. Now, and then I'll just, one more thing. I don't know if I'm going to broadcast anymore today. I have some, like one red line here that I like it, but it's too much, and I want to cover it up. And I'm going to cover that up with a palette knife stroke. So one of the things I'm going to do on this painting before I'm done is what I did on my last painting, which is introduce at the very, 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 very end of the process, introduce some palette knife textures. So we'll see. I don't know if that's going to become a permanent part of my toolbox or if it's just a passing fancy. So I don't know. We'll all find out together. But I do think I want to do it here. More Jeremy Mann here. Refracted light, bent light coming around a dark object with a backlit light source. Hey, I am glad to learn anything from anybody. While all of my contemporaries were throwing their big noses up in the air at Thomas Kincaid, I was learning stuff from him. Made me a better painter. They would have been a better painter if they'd gotten their noses out of the sky. Then I'm getting really snarky now. We'll ignore all that. It is what I really think, and it came out, didn't it? All right, and I'm painting too slow. I'm driving myself crazy, let alone driving you guys crazy. All right, any other last comments? Oh, good. Richard, look forward to seeing you. Please come up and yell at me, would you? Come up and say hi. Adolph and Eva look good even with crossed arms. Her dress is more date night than business. Okay, yeah, good. Good point. Thank you, Jane. I needed a woman to come in and comment. I'm terrible about fashion. And I don't think, by the way, I don't think he's too tall for the cars. No, I think it's okay, David. He's even with a car that would be down here, and he's up on the sidewalk. Anyway, of course he's not going to move, but I think he's okay. But thanks for pointing that out. I do think I like the idea of a little tiny bit of lavender up here, just a little more energy, a little bit more. Whew. All right. Generally speaking, I'm happy with the work that I've done in the last, whatever it's been, hour and a bit. And but I need to work by myself for a little while. We'll see if I do another broadcast or not. I've got a couple of meetings today. All right, thanks for watching. I've enjoyed your company very much. Appreciate it.